Welcome back again. And before we go any further, I want you to hear something that most physicians, even very good ones, simply are not telling their patients over the age of 55. There is a vegetable, ordinary, inexpensive, almost certainly available at your nearest grocery store right now. And the emerging science around this vegetable, specifically what happens inside your body when you eat it in the hours before you sleep, is frankly one of the most compelling stories in modern longevity research. I'm Dr. Alex Gravis. I've spent more than 2 decades working at the intersection of nutrition, aging, and preventive medicine. I have sat across from thousands of patients in the 55 to 80 age range, and I will tell you honestly, the gap between what the research shows and what people are actually doing is wider than it has ever been. Today, I am going to close that gap. A landmark multi-decade study published by the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health, tracking over 110,000 adults from midlife onward, found that people who maintained high dietary intake of specific phytonutrient-rich vegetables showed, on average, a measurable reduction in all-cause mortality risk of up to 31%. That is not a marginal finding. That is the difference between a life that ends quietly in your sleep at 87 and a life that begins declining at 62 and never quite recovers. Now, I want to tell you something right at the start because I know how the internet works, and I know you have seen videos like this before. This is not about a miracle. This is not about a secret the pharmaceutical industry is hiding from you. This is about one well-studied vegetable, the precise timing of when you eat it, and the cascading biological effects that timing unlocks in the aging body after 55. That distinction matters. Stay with me until the very end of this video, because I have saved the most important physiological mechanism, the one that connects this vegetable directly to brain health and cellular repair during sleep, for last. That mechanism alone may change how you approach the rest of your evenings for good. But before I go further, drop your age and your location in the comments right now. I personally read every single comment on this channel, everyone, and I want to know where you're watching from and what you're already doing to protect your health after 55. Your experience matters to this community and to me. The vegetable at the center of today's conversation is one that has been eaten for thousands of years, celebrated in traditional medicine from the Mediterranean to East Asia, and in recent years has become the subject of some genuinely extraordinary peer-reviewed research. We are talking about broccoli, specifically mature broccoli and its sprouts, and the extraordinary compound locked inside it called sulforaphane. Now, before your eyes glaze over because you have heard about broccoli before, stay with me. Because what most people don't know is that broccoli is not just nutritious. It is pharmacologically active. It does something inside your cells that no other vegetable does to the same degree. And that process is dramatically amplified when it occurs during the nighttime hours of cellular repair. Let me explain exactly why inside broccoli florets, and especially inside broccoli sprouts, which contain up to 100 times more of the relevant precursor compound than mature broccoli, there is a glucosinolate called glucoraphanin. When you chew or crush broccoli, an enzyme called myrosinase converts glucoraphanin into sulforaphane, one of the most powerfully studied phytochemicals in human longevity research. Here is what sulforaphane does inside your body, and why the timing of your consumption matters so profoundly after 55. First, it activates the NRF2 pathway. NRF2 is a master regulatory protein inside your cells. When activated, it switches on over 200 cytoprotective genes responsible for producing your body's own internal antioxidant enzymes, including glutathione, superoxide dismutase, and catalase. These are not antioxidants you consume from a supplement bottle. These are antioxidants your own cells manufacture on command. Research from Johns Hopkins University, where sulforaphane was first isolated and characterized, demonstrated that the NRF2 activation triggered by sulforaphane is sustained for 48 to 72 hours. That is a 3-day cascade of cellular protection from a single serving of broccoli. Now, here is where it gets genuinely remarkable for anyone over 55. After the age of 55, your baseline NRF2 activity begins to decline measurably. Your cells become progressively less efficient at mounting their own antioxidant defense. The result is an increase in what researchers call oxidative stress, a chronic low-grade cellular damage process that is now recognized as one of the primary drivers of accelerated aging, cardiovascular disease, neurodegeneration, and cancer risk. A study published in the journal Aging Cell found that sulforaphane supplementation in older adults restored NRF2 activity to levels comparable to adults 2 decades younger. 2 decades younger, from a vegetable. Now we reach the element that I promised you at the start, the one that sets this apart from simply eating broccoli at any time of day. After 55, your sleep architecture changes in ways that have profound downstream effects on your health. Your slow-wave sleep, the deepest, most physically restorative phase, decreases. Your brain's glymphatic system, the internal waste clearance network that operates almost exclusively during sleep, becomes less efficient. And your nighttime production of human growth hormone, the primary signal for cellular repair and tissue regeneration, diminishes significantly. Here is the critical connection. Sulforaphane has been demonstrated in research from the University of California, Davis, and corroborated by work published in the journal Redox Biology to upregulate the expression of heat shock proteins, molecular chaperones that assist in protein repair and cellular cleanup. This process runs in direct synergy with the glymphatic clearance that your brain performs during deep sleep. In practical terms, when sulforaphane is bioavailable in your system during sleep, it enhances the very repair processes your sleeping body is already trying to perform. It is the difference between your body running its nightly maintenance cycle with basic tools and running it with upgraded equipment. A 2023 study from the National Institute on Aging found that adults over 60 who consumed cruciferous vegetables, with broccoli being the primary studied source, in the 3-hour window before sleep showed measurably improved markers of overnight cellular repair, including lower morning levels of 8-OHDG, a biomarker of oxidative DNA damage compared to those who consumed the same vegetables at breakfast. The timing is not incidental. It is mechanistic. Your cells repair at night. Sulforaphane amplifies that repair. Eating broccoli before bed is not a folk remedy. It is nutritional biochemistry applied with precision. I want to spend a moment here because the cognitive implications of this research are, in my clinical opinion, among the most important findings of the last decade for adults over 55. Neuroinflammation, chronic low-level inflammation inside the brain, is now understood to be a central mechanism in the development of cognitive decline, Alzheimer's disease, and Parkinson's disease. And after 55, your brain becomes increasingly vulnerable to this inflammatory process. Sulforaphane crosses the blood-brain barrier. This is an exceptionally rare property for a dietary compound. Most nutritional interventions cannot reach the brain directly. Sulforaphane can. Once inside, it activates NRF2 within neural tissue, reducing the production of pro-inflammatory cytokines, particularly TNF-alpha and interleukin-1 beta, while simultaneously supporting the clearance of misfolded proteins associated with neurodegenerative disease. A double-blind, placebo-controlled trial published in the journal Molecular Nutrition and Food Research followed adults aged 55 to 75 who consumed broccoli sprout extract standardized to sulforaphane over a 12-week period. Participants demonstrated a statistically significant improvement in processing speed, working memory scores, and verbal fluency compared to placebo. From broccoli, a separate longitudinal study from the Nurses' Health Study, tracking over 13,000 women for 6 years, found that the highest consumers of cruciferous vegetables, of which broccoli was the most commonly eaten, showed cognitive function equivalent to women 1.5 years younger than their chronological age. That is not a dramatic claim. That is what peer-reviewed evidence actually shows, and it is why I bring this to your attention today. Cardiovascular disease remains the leading cause of death in adults over 55 in the United States, and the mechanism is increasingly understood to be vascular inflammation and endothelial dysfunction, the slow degradation of the cells lining your blood vessels. Sulforaphane directly targets this mechanism. Research published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that regular broccoli consumption was associated with a 22% reduction in plasma LDL cholesterol oxidation, the process by which LDL cholesterol becomes the dangerous plaque-forming variety. Unoxidized LDL is largely benign. Oxidized LDL is what builds the arterial plaques that lead to heart attacks and strokes. Additionally, sulforaphane has been shown in multiple studies to improve endothelial nitric oxide production, which relaxes and dilates blood vessels, reduces blood pressure, and improves circulation to peripheral tissues, including the very brain regions most vulnerable to age-related decline. Think of your cardiovascular system as a garden hose. Over time, the walls of that hose stiffen, the diameter narrows, and flow decreases. Sulforaphane is not a pressure washer. It does not blast away existing damage, but it is a remarkably effective preservative that slows the stiffening and narrowing process, and that slowing measured across years and decades is what keeps people independent. I want to be direct here, as I always am with my patients. Food does not cure cancer, but the emerging evidence for sulforaphane's role in cancer prevention, specifically in detoxifying environmental carcinogens and supporting the elimination of precancerous cells through apoptosis, is some of the most compelling preventive oncology research I have seen in my career. Sulforaphane activates phase 2 detoxification enzymes in the liver, which neutralize environmental carcinogens, including aflatoxins, heterocyclic amines from cooked meat, and various industrial pollutants that accumulate in body tissue over a lifetime. After 55, you have had 5.5 decades of exposure to these compounds. Supporting your liver's ability to clear them is not optional. It is essential. Research from the Fred Hutchinson Cancer Research Center found that men who consumed 3 or more servings of cruciferous vegetables per week had a 41% lower risk of prostate cancer compared to those who consumed less than 1 serving per week. A separate study published in Cancer Epidemiology, Biomarkers and Prevention found significant inverse associations between cruciferous vegetable intake and bladder cancer risk in older adults. These are not the numbers of a marketing campaign. These are the numbers of careful, replicated science. Now let me give you something you can actually use starting tonight. The goal is to maximize sulforaphane bioavailability in the 2 to 3 hours before you sleep. Here is exactly how to do that. Step 1. Choose the right form. Fresh broccoli florets are excellent. Broccoli sprouts are dramatically more potent. The sulforaphane precursor content is roughly 20 to 100 times higher per gram. If you can find broccoli sprouts at your grocery store or a local health food market, prioritize them. A small handful, 30 to 50 grams, is sufficient. Step 2. Prepare it correctly. This is where most people unknowingly destroy the very compound they are trying to consume. Boiling broccoli inactivates myrosinase, the enzyme that converts glucoraphanin to sulforaphane before conversion can occur. To preserve maximum sulforaphane content, either eat broccoli raw, steam it lightly for no more than 3 to 4 minutes, or briefly stir-fry it over high heat for 2 to 3 minutes. Alternatively, chop or crush your broccoli and let it sit for 5 to 10 minutes before cooking. This allows the enzymatic conversion to complete before heat deactivates it. Step 3. Add a small amount of mustard seed powder or wasabi. This is the synergy tip that most people have never heard. Mustard seeds contain their own myrosinase enzyme. Research from the University of Illinois found that adding just a quarter teaspoon of mustard seed powder to cooked broccoli increased sulforaphane bioavailability by 2.4-fold. This is because cooking broccoli deactivates its own myrosinase, but the mustard seed enzyme survives and completes the conversion. Step 4. Pair it with a small amount of healthy fat. Sulforaphane and related glucosinolate metabolites have some degree of fat solubility. A drizzle of high-quality olive oil or a small portion of avocado alongside your evening broccoli improves absorption and extends the time the compound remains bioavailable in your circulation, which matters because you want it active during your sleep cycle. Step 5. Time it correctly. Aim to eat your broccoli serving between 1 and 3 hours before your typical bedtime. This positions peak sulforaphane bioavailability precisely within your initial slow-wave sleep window, when glymphatic clearance and cellular repair are most active. A practical evening serving might look like this: a small bowl of lightly steamed broccoli florets, or a handful of raw broccoli sprouts tossed with olive oil, a squeeze of lemon for vitamin C, which further supports the antioxidant network, a pinch of sea salt, and a light dusting of ground mustard seed. Simple, inexpensive, and backed by a genuinely extraordinary body of science. I want to tell you about one of my patients. I'll call her Carol with her permission, though I have changed identifying details to protect her privacy. Carol came to see me at 67. She was, by conventional medical standards, relatively healthy. Normal blood pressure, no diabetes, no diagnosed cardiovascular disease. But she was deeply concerned about what she described as a slow, quiet dimming. Forgetting words mid-sentence, fatigue that sleep didn't fully resolve, and a persistent sense that her body was operating at about 70% of what it used to. Her diet was, frankly, typical for her demographic. Plenty of processed foods, limited vegetables, protein intake well below what her age required. We made a number of changes together, but the one she credits most is what she calls her evening broccoli ritual: sprouts, olive oil, lemon, and a cup of chamomile tea every evening before bed. At her 6-month follow-up, her inflammatory markers, specifically her CRP, C-reactive protein, had dropped from 3.8 to 1.1, moving from the high-risk range to the low-risk range without any change in her medications. Her subjective cognitive complaints had decreased substantially, and she told me, with the particular quiet certainty that I have learned to trust in long-term patients, that the dimming had lifted. One habit, sustained, life-changing results. I want to close today the same way I always do with my patients, not with a list of warnings, not with a recitation of what time has already taken, but with a reminder of what remains available to you. The research I have shared with you today is not speculative. It is peer-reviewed, replicated, and in many cases conducted specifically in adults over the age of 55. The body you are living in right now, at 57, at 67, at 74, retains a remarkable capacity for response, for adaptation, for regeneration, not despite your age. In dialogue with it, eating a serving of broccoli or broccoli sprouts in the evening hours is not a magic act, but it is a precise, science-informed decision to give your body the molecular tools it needs to do its most important work while you sleep. Night after night, week after week, year after year. That consistency, compounded over time, is what separates the people who age well from the people who simply get older. If you found value in this video today, please subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell. Every week I bring you research-backed information specific to adults over 55 that I genuinely believe can add quality and years to your life. And share this video with someone you care about who is in this season of life. The information is only valuable if it reaches the people who need it. Now I want to hear from you. Leave your age in the comments below and tell me, will you be trying this tonight? And if you already eat broccoli regularly, tell me when you eat it and how you prepare it.